Got some breaking news in the NBA. It's not a free agency signing, but the Grizzlies proactively keeping Jaren Jackson from hitting free agency down the road. He is expected to sign a 5-year, $240 million extension with the Grizzlies, according to ESPN. It's the most money he can make, not technically an NBA max, but the most money he could possibly make. Averaged 18.5 points, 5.5 rebounds for Memphis last season, and look at this, only Brook Lopez has more seasons with 100+ blocks and 100+ threes, and Jaren Jackson has been in the league for 7 years. 4 of those 7 seasons have ended like that. Chris Hassel with Ashley Nicole Moss and Brad Botkin. Brad, can you explain what Memphis did here to keep him there for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, so Jaren Jackson Jr. is only on the books for like $23 million this year. There's a clause that you can only make 140% raise on your last year's salary for your next contract. So the thinking all along here in free agency was that the Grizzlies were going to have to cut enough off of their salary cap, about $14 million was thought to be the number, that they could then renegotiate the final year of Jackson's deal, which is this coming year, and then base his raise off of that number. And the reason that that's important is because the Grizzlies had to get as close to what a league max, not what his max would be based on the $23 million he's scheduled to make this year, but what he could make if he went to another team. Specifically, we've talked about this, the Los Angeles Lakers, who will have max space next year. And there was that threat hanging over the Grizzlies. If we don't get him up to close enough to a max number that he's happy to lock in with us, he could go to free agency next year, and the Lakers will have actual max cap space to give to him. So they get ahead of it. Kind of the strange thing here is it's one of the ways we were thinking that they would be able to cut some salary this year to renegotiate Jackson's contract would be with Santi Aldama. But then now we're getting news that Santi's back with the Grizzlies, and so they keep two really good players. The bottom line here is they get ahead of this looming threat that Jackson could leave in free agency next year. They solidify a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, one of the better big men in the league, who would have just been salivating to pair with Luka Doncic. And I can't stress enough how big that threat was for the Grizzlies to get this done. If they don't get this done and the Lakers go into next season with max cap space and a chance to play with Luka Doncic, it's over. He's going to the Lakers. So they had to get this done. They got it done. And we'll see if they're able to trim some salary now moving forward. But the key is they got him locked in.
Yeah, I mean, this is super beneficial because when we talk about the Memphis Grizzlies, this is a team that when Brad and I were kind of going through the playoff picture and then ultimately the first round of the playoffs, we kept saying this team is a lot better than where they landed. And the reason they landed where they did, the 8th spot in the West, was because of the injuries, the unfortunate injuries to Ja Morant. Now, that's going to be a question mark still going into next season, the season after that, and just because of how athletic he is and how much he leads with his body is, can he stay healthy? Because as we know, Ja Morant is such a pivotal part of what makes this Memphis Grizzlies team work. But with that said, losing Desmond Bane was a big piece. You lose him to the Orlando Magic, and you kind of had to make sure that you kept what made this team so good outside of him. And a big piece of that is Jaren Jackson Jr. Like Brad said, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, I believe 2023 DPO-wise. So this is a guy who brings a lot to the table. And when you have him and Ja Morant both healthy, both on the court at the same time, this is a team that's a lot better in the Western Conference than we saw this postseason. Again, the biggest part of this equation is, can Ja Morant stay healthy? If he can, this is absolutely a playoff team. This is a team that you don't want to see in a 7-game series. They play quick, they play physical, and they're all the attributes you want in a young team. And this is a team that I was actually very high on a few seasons ago, and they've kind of faltered a little bit from that image that I had in my head once upon a time about them. But again, it goes back to Ja Morant. But this was a great move for the Memphis Grizzlies to retain a player like this.
Yeah, you kind of thought the Memphis was on that same track as the Timberwolves with a young superstar in OKC too, where you would see them breaking through at this point. It just hasn't happened yet. They did, Brad, as you mentioned, make another adjustment to a contract today. 3 years, $52.5 million for Santi Aldama, who's coming off a career year in just about every category: points, rebounds, assists, and steals per game. Great
player, stretch shooter, 36, 37% three-point shooter. this is not, you're not a defensive guy for his height, but this is a guy that in the modern NBA, to be able to stretch that floor out as the five-man, I thought a lot of us were thinking Detroit was going to make a ton of sense. Really thought he would be one of the casualties of the Grizzlies trying to pare down their cap space to get this Jackson deal done. But the fact that they get the Jackson deal done and keep Aldama, really, really good stuff from the Grizzlies. There was a chance that they'd have this Jaren Jackson Jr. leaving next year hanging over him and have lost Santi Aldama. That was really in play. And what you're seeing from the Grizzlies here is what every team now is looking to do. Very, very difficult to operate with a quote-unquote big three. You've got to realistically decide who that third guy is. You know, Bradley Beal in Phoenix. We're going to talk about maybe Mikal Bridges with the Knicks. If you have your top two guys, that third guy, and whether you can afford to pay him max money. You look at the Denver Nuggets with Michael Porter Jr. Okay, Murray and Jokic are your guys, but now when you're paying Michael Porter Jr. $200 million, very limiting in terms of what you can do with the depth of your roster. That third guy has to really be worth it if you're going to keep that big three blueprint in place. And Memphis, I think, smartly got off the big three for more depth. Cole Anthony came over from Orlando. The word is now that he could be bought out. He's a guy that could be traded into cap space with Brooklyn, maybe with a pick to incentivize them so that they can keep, probably end up trading John Conchar, but that's in the weeds here a little bit. But these moves that they're going to be able to make to keep trimming salary while keeping Aldama and Jackson, really successful so far from the Grizzlies.